Why is Kaká the most unconventional Brazilian legend? A handsome face, the complexion and the refined demeanor of a true gentleman. A graceful playing style that relied less on traditional Samba-style dribbling, but instead stood out for his sudden bursts of acceleration, incredible balance, and pinpoint shooting accuracy. Highly disciplined in his training routines, completely minimalist in his fashion sense, and an absolute role model in his personal relationships. Furthermore, he is an avid reader and a deeply devout man. While these few brief highlights obviously cannot tell the whole story, they are certainly enough to partially answer the question, why is Kaká the most unconventional Brazilian legend? Don't look at the youthful appearance, still visible at age 43, and think it is somehow too early to elevate Kaká to the status of a legend. It becomes absolutely obvious when you look back at his massive achievements. The 2007 Ballon d'Or, the 2002 FIFA World Cup, the 2005 and 2009 FIFA Confederations Cups, the 2006 to 2007 UEFA Champions League, the 2003 to 2004 Serie A, and the 2011 to 2012 La Liga. And those are merely his most standout trophies. According to Opta Stats, Kaká is one of only 8 players to have ever won the World Cup, the Champions League, and the Ballon d'Or, standing shoulder to shoulder in this regard with Sir Bobby Charlton, Gerd Müller, Franz Beckenbauer, Paolo Rossi, Zinedine Zidane, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho. But unlike the 2 Brazilian predecessors just mentioned, and unlike his senior Ronaldo, El Fenomeno, or many of the younger players who followed, Kaká will forever be remembered as a truly unconventional Brazilian player. Let's begin with his background. The origin story of a samba star is usually tied to rundown favelas, with barefoot kids kicking plastic balls on dusty dirt fields, carrying a fierce dream of changing their lives. Kaká took an entirely different path. As a genuine citizen of the magnificent capital of Brasilia, he grew up in a family with a solid financial foundation. His father was an engineer and his mother was an elementary school teacher. The young boy, whose real name is Ricardo Isaacson dos Santos Leite, received a progressive and comprehensive education from a very young age. The daily struggle to make ends meet seemingly never even crossed his mind. In fact, the very first sport where young Ricardo showed natural talent was actually tennis, a sport practically reserved for the upper class at that time. It wasn't until he was 15 years old when the Sao Paulo club recognized this diamond in the rough and offered him his first professional contract that Kaká finally put his racket away in the closet to lace up his soccer cleats. Even the name Kaká was born out of a heartwarming family joke. When his younger brother Dijau was just a toddler learning to speak, he couldn't quite roll his tongue to say the name Ricardo, and instead just babbled it out as Kaká. That specific sound stuck with him, despite the fact that in several different languages, the word carries a somewhat foul-smelling meaning. He carried that name out into the world, along with his gentle smile, truly believing that everything happens to him for a reason. Kaká arrived at AC Milan in the summer of 2003. The Italian media, upon catching their first glimpse of him at the airport, were already whispering among themselves. The scene at that moment was chaotic, but Kaká stepped out wearing prescription glasses and neatly combed hair. The reporters from Gazzetta dello Sport at the time described him as looking more like a college student heading to an internship than a blockbuster signing for the reigning European champions. However, that college student quickly made the San Siro stadium erupt.
He forced the maestro
Manuel Rui Costa, to get used to the substitute bench. Kaká stood at 1.86 meters tall with long, sweeping strides. Rarely overusing complicated stepovers, his playing style was built on pure composure, perfect balance, and blistering bursts of speed. Whenever Kaká had the ball at his feet, he was always driving straight forward. An account on the social network X wrote, "Kaká, running with the ball at his feet, was even faster than defenders running without it. Every time he pushed the ball long, it was a declaration of war sent to the opponent's goal." The 2006 to 2007 season marked the most brilliant and triumphant period for the Angel wearing the number 22 shirt. AC Milan suffered personnel losses that year, so head coach Carlo Ancelotti decided to push Kaká up to play right behind the lone striker, Filippo Inzaghi. At 24 years old, he transformed into a ruthless goal-scoring and assisting machine underneath an elegant exterior. Fans will never forget that fateful play that took down Celtic in the Champions League round of 16. Kaká received the ball from midfield, went on a 50-meter solo run, dragging along 3 green and white shirts who were panting in a hopeless chase, right before nutmegging the goalkeeper to score. Reaching the semi-finals, he turned the mighty Manchester United into a mere backdrop for his personal showcase. Right in the heart of the theatre of dreams, Kaká scored a brace. Among them, the second goal was the absolute pinnacle of sharpness. He flicked the ball over Gabriel Heinz's head, used his own head to knock the ball past the reach of Patrice Evra, causing the 2 Red Devils' defensive rocks to crash into each other and tumble to the ground. Kaká broke free, calmly curling the ball to beat goalkeeper Edwin van der Sar. In the return leg at the San Siro, he continued by scoring 1 more goal, sending the English representatives out of the tournament with an aggregate score of 5-3. Kaká's pinpoint shooting ability continued to be affirmed in the national team jersey. At the end of his career, when asked about his favorite goal, he didn't choose any of his masterpieces from the Champions League. Kaká chose his breakaway sprint and goal against Argentina in 2006. He stole the ball in his own half and carried it on a long, non-stop run toward the opponent's side of the field. Behind him, a young Lionel Messi ran his legs off trying to chase him down, but watched helplessly as the distance between them kept stretching further and further apart. Kaká charged straight into the penalty box, unleashing a cold-blooded finish to seal a 3-0 victory. Kaká's phenomenal career was also built upon a lifestyle of iron discipline, drawing a clear boundary between himself and the majority of his other great compatriots. The history of soccer shows that many Brazilian players have partying deeply ingrained in their blood. Johan Cruyff once told a story from the time he was molding the dream team at Barcelona. Striker Romario, slacking off on the training pitch, came to ask him for a 2-day leave to fly back to Rio de Janeiro to attend the Carnival Festival. Cruyff made a deal. Score 2 goals in tomorrow's game, and I'll give you 2 extra days off. The next day, Romario completed his brace in just 20 minutes. Right after scoring, he ran straight to the sideline and shouted loudly, "Boss, sub me out. My plane takes off in an hour." Or take the case of Ronaldo de Lima. Head coach Fabio Capello once complained that Ronaldo was the greatest striker, but also the laziest player he had ever managed. Another superstar, Ronaldinho, also couldn't escape the irresistible pull of endless long nights. When a young Alexandre Pato first arrived in Italy, Ronaldinho walked right up to him and bluntly gave him an ultimatum. "If you want to party and chase girls, join my crew. But if you want to read books and watch movies, go find Kaká. Pato ultimately chose to follow Ronaldinho, sliding down a path of wild, hedonistic nights. Kaká did not. At the absolute peak of his career, he became the very first soccer player to hit the 10 million followers milestone on the Twitter platform. With a sky-high salary and a striking appearance, Kaká had every reason in the world to let himself go. However, he rarely ever showed up at nightclubs with blasting, thumping music. He completely cut off alcohol, said no to cigarette smoke, and stayed far away from any romantic scandals.